Terence, Dakar looms. It's coming close. You're running 3 cars?
Yeah, we have 3 customer cars there. So we've got Ali Kolik, the young 19-year-old, just turned 19. So it's her first Dakar on a T1 Plus, and I would think, if not the first female in a T1 Plus, definitely the youngest female ever in a T1 Plus. So a lot of training. She used the South African series to train. We did some work in Namibia with her. She subsequently went to Abu Dhabi. She done some training there. So now final prep of the car. So that's the one car. The second car is a 64-year-old customer from Belgium, whose dream and aspirations, his ambitions, I should say, is the Dakar. So he'll be going to his first Dakar, and that's Stefan Carmen's in also the V8 powered T1 Plus. Same thing, South African training that he's done out here with us, also Namibia trip in getting me up to speed. So it's a dream for him, and one we're going to try and facilitate and make real. So he's on the starting line, which is the first thing that has to happen. And then the third car, that's a little bit more competitive, which is nice for us to see. Hanwei is the Chinese champion. He finished 8th overall in the Dakar last year. So Hanwei Motorsport has become a partner to our business. We are the official technology partner, and they will be producing our car in China for the next 3 to 5 years. And Hanwei is also there in the V8. Obviously, he will move to the turbo in the new year, but for now, he will be in the V8 as far as they say launching the partnership. So that's quite an exciting one. As a business, they're basically floating between all 3. Our Red-Lined European operation will provide all the support, so we contracted to provide that for Stefan. In the Bulgaria camp for Alia, we are a partnership there, so we have engineers and technicians in there. And then on Hanwei's side, we also have a couple of technicians. And then obviously I just float around.
And test the ablution facilities.
Yeah, all those things that we've got another 3 weeks to see what that weather and what those conditions are going to be like. I think this is my 12th, so you kind of know it. I always think to myself, geez, have I prepared, But then you think to yourself, you end up packing a bag, the landscape, what's going to happen. It's for us still trying to collect data. We're pretty new, one of the last of the guys to enter the T1 Plus category. And while we've proved the V8s from the start have been very strong and reliable, we will still want more data there, particularly, and that's what Dakar does. It gives us, as let's say, semi-professional environment, 12 days of data and 3 cars in 12 days. You come back with a lot of learnings. So a lot of learnings, and obviously this platform allows us to move that all across to the turbo with the release of that next year.
So you touched on the business of motorsport and Red-Lined. You moving with the turbo car into really the sharp end, proper competitive side of it. But traditionally you've provided solid, good, quick, reliable cars that a privateer can run. When the turbo comes along, do you think that's going to change? Does it move the level of privateer up a couple of notches?
Yeah, I think it's an evolution of our business. We've had a phenomenal, let's say, last 2-3 years. Really battled logically through COVID, And then from there, we've really been in good space. But, our target market remains the businessman, the privateer, let's say, up to the semi-professional level. And that's why we concentrate so much on strength and reliability. And, with that in mind, you've got to realize that we've got to build components that last longer than a factory components. The factory guys have got significant budgets, so they make it as light as possible, and they can change it per stage or per race. That's not our customer base. We also want to build cars that we don't have to have 6 people working on them. So, stronger components generally need to be heavier. We still come well within the weight limitations of the cars as such, but I think as we've evolved as a business now, we keep finding ourselves competing at the higher end. So we decided a while back, but we needed to tick a few boxes to get there first, that we would go the turbo route, but we'll continue to offer both. So that a V8 will always be easier to drive than a turbo. The turbo is the sharper end, and as I say, it's a lot more complicated and not so easy to run. So when you sit, we've got more than 50 cars in 20 countries. You don't really want to be taking calls from whether it's Algeria or China or the Middle East with the complications of these turbo cars. So we will we'll be very selective of where they go, and I think that's important for us into the future. But when we come next year, we will be coming to be more competitive, if that makes sense. I think everybody knows that we build strong and reliable cars that are competitive, but we don't necessarily have the competitors themselves in the cars. We have more of a, without being disrespectful in any way, a participant to say, and now we start moving to the sharp end. So, yeah, next year we have higher aspirations.
It'll be very interesting. Chris Visser in the car behind us finished third in the tight stuff. Now, and I want to get on to talk about the turbo a little bit. Now, in the turbo car, it carries on pulling. It's going to be hell of a interesting to see the results on the fast open stuff.
Yeah, look, we've done 2 days and 600 kilometers of testing, and I mean, it is impressive. As I said, the V8s are also wonderful. It's whether they get the BOP. There's nothing wrong with a V8 engine, and obviously turbos. And a lot of the manufacturers are wanting to go to turbo because that's where the road-going cars are. That's not necessarily the reason why we have to do it. If you look at the major manufacturers, they've had to do it. They don't necessarily want to do it. They had to do it because of, they're building those cars and they want to sell those cars.
Why did you decide to go the turbo route?
Just the fact is one, I mean, the market is going. There's a percentage of the market that's going there, and as our business is growing, so is that customer. So the fact that the customer might not be able to operate at those levels, he has aspirations of being there. So there was quite a demand for it, and I think with us being as independent as we are, we love playing and love taking on things. So we kind of write our own stories. So we didn't have to. No one dictates to us. So last year we decided we would go turbo. And then when we did a lot of research on it, that was the beginning of the year, it was important that we found out that, the rules and the regulations were only to 3,500 cc. And I thought, well, why has nobody questioned that? Why that ceiling? If they control the boost, what difference does it make what the cubic capacity of the engine should be? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I wrote to the FIA and said, guys, could we relook at this? Because if you control the boost, the cubic capacity doesn't make any difference. And if you open this up to 4,000 cc's and not 3.5, it opens up for a whole lot of different manufacturers. And in our case, we really wanted to run the GTR engine, which is a 3.8 litre twin turbo V6. It's also important that the bigger the cubic capacity, the less boost you have to run, the less boost, the less heat. And that was a problematic thing that we know everybody watching from the outside. It's not easy for us to arrive first at a party because we're a privateer. So you've got to take a little bit of learnings off the factories. So we'll always arrive a little bit later, but well prepared when we do arrive. And yeah, that was the learnings that, we had a very, very good 3-litre engine within the stable. But with it being smaller, we had to turn up the boost and more heats, and so the complications. So yeah, the FIA came back and said, yeah, we 100% agree with you. I then sent the motivation through for the approval of this particular engine, which had to go through all the processes at FIA, working technical committees, and eventually to the World Motorsport Council, and then that was promulgated, stamped off early last year, which meant, okay, all systems go. Now you've got to order the engines and obviously develop them. So in the background now, we took a lot of time to do all the development. There's obviously the GTR engine is run to 1,200, 2,500 horsepower around the world. So we knew producing the power was very easy for us. We would never have this discussion again on power. But now, obviously, heat and efficiencies of that engine. And a lot of work with Matthew Thursby in the engineering side. He heads up engineering. He did a lot with his team. And at this stage, as I said, 2 days, 600 kilometers in 5 hours, and we didn't take the bonnet off. So at this stage, it's looking very, very good. But obviously, we still have to go through a homologation process.
And you got to get to a race. Testing is one thing. Racing, when you put... Chris Visser's going to drive this car next year?
Yeah, so the objective now is that I've done all the initial 5 hours of work with the team, and as I said, we've got it to where we believe it's going to be. It's in the 95%, so where we believe it would be. Chris will now test the car himself within the week.
And but he's looking forward to it. It's been a long time, him anxiously waiting for this to happen, and just before Christmas, what a Christmas present.
Oh, it's a Christmas for the Burki. I mean, he nagged me, between him and Matthew, they nagged me the last year. And I just said, guys, let's just get it right. I mean, I don't want to be the first there. Let's get it right. And he's really excited, and he should be. As I said, the 5 hours that I spent in the car and the 600 kilometers I have done, it was very impressive, and it is the next level. So yeah, he's excited. We'll go out and we'll do that this week. Then we all off to Dakar. Then we come back, and then the objective is we would have done probably around 800 kilometers by then. And then we'll do the first 2 regionals, which is February, March, which will take us up to 2,000 kilometers of testing, which is significant for us to get what we need. And then obviously the first national, this is the car 2, 3, 4, and 5 already in production as such. So yeah, it's obviously difficult to run into those until you're happy where you are. So you hold back on a lot of things until you've ticked the boxes, Yeah, it makes for a very, very exciting 2024 in the South African Championship.
It really does. But the other thing it adds to is an order book, which from reading the information you put out there is pretty damn full. You're going to build 10 odd cars next year?
Yeah, obviously we got the distribution network as well, so we've got to look after them and existing customers. So it's an interesting time or period in the business because it's more what I call farming and looking after those that we love type of thing, we have. So the order book is full for 2024. We're now looking at 2025 orders, and that's between the turbo and the V8. As I said, there's still a mixture between, not everybody will be necessary. Some customers will be quicker in a V8 than they will be in a turbo. That's just 2 different driving. The turbo requires a lot more input than a V8 does. So, I think you have to really look at somebody's experience and their background and their ability. If a lot of the European guys are only getting in a car once every 3-4 months, they're very, not like us, we're very fortunate. And if they don't have the skill sets, then you're saying, guys, when you do tests, you'll find that they'll be quicker in the V8. So it's about getting the best product for the customers. But at the same time, we do get customers who just don't really give a shit about that. They just want the quickest and the fastest,
So in the South African motorsport, the way it fits, the motorsport manufacturers fits into the global thing, we're probably going to have more than 50% of the cars in Dakar in 24 having been built in South Africa. It starts when we sit and from a loose count, there's probably over 40 new cars being built next year. That puts a huge strain on all the logistics and all the suppliers. Is it still manageable the way we've done things in the past, or is there a new way of doing things?
I don't know. I would think if I look at, it's amazing that so many of the cars are built in South Africa. I think I would say 4 of the top 6 builders, or by quantity, are in South Africa. It's quite an amazing story. And I think, the perfect is everybody kind of sets out to build about 10 a year. And then I think the supply chain determines whether you do 8 or 10 or, At this stage, I think we all feel the same pain, and that's the supply chain, that a lot of them haven't recovered post-COVID. But the demand for T1 Plus has grown phenomenally, We're also finding a lot of the T3 and T4 guys are moving to T1. So the T1 is still becoming quite aspirational because T3 and T4 bring the people into the sport, and then they realize those are more recreational cars than racing vehicles. Yeah, and they're saying, well, what's the next level up? I really love this shit now. What do I do, And so we've seen quite a nice trend moving up in the T1s, which is quite nice because a lot of the T1s are getting traded in for T1 Pluses effectively. But the big wave is T1 Plus. That's the reality. And yeah, we all have the same challenges. I think everybody's built really, really world-class cars, and we all have over the years, and we all have our respective customer bases and different target market effectively. We non-factory, as I said, Ford and Toyota will be more factory-based, and I suppose Julian at Century would also be more non-factory like us. But yeah, so it's just how big our aspirations are, and how it's commercially minded versus, let's say, competitively minded.
And other turbo cars coming into the South African Championship next year?
Yeah, at this stage, another 2 will come in. So I would like to think by the middle of the year we'll have 3 running in the South African Championship. The rest are for export. So we again, once we get there, we need data. So we've done some nice partnership and deals that allows us to get a few more in. And obviously, as they say, the more you know, the better it gets. But we need the data. So yeah, ideally, Chris will start for the first one. We'll probably have number 2 by the second. That's the idea. Let's see how it plans itself out. I don't know what a Dakar hangover brings us, which it always does every year. And then obviously by the 3rd event, as I said, it'll be 2 or 3.
It's exciting times, Terence. I think I marvel at every time we go into these workshops to see the level of business and commitment that you in particular, from a customer point of view, put in. And the level of, I mean, there's 40 people odd that earn living out of this business.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting conversations I have overseas. Is if you start putting, you know, the Hall Speeds, the NWMs, the Centuries, ourselves, Stewart at WC, you start pulling these resources and you have a look at the skills and you look at the qualities of the cars. It's incredible. I mean, the last time I looked at, there was more than, I think, 200 million rands worth of cars were exported as an industry in South Africa, and that's well over that now with the T1 Pluses. You know, you're probably pushing, I wouldn't be surprised if it's between 250 and 300, you know. And then, as you said, if you look at the employment side, it must be, I don't know, 150 to 200 people as an industry.
Directly in the factories, and never mind all of the harness suppliers, the bodywork, all the other suppliers in the chain.
It's as I said, it's over the years, the way it's progressed, as I look at how, you know, we've all progressed, and everybody's building quality cars. And when you go to Dakar and you have a look at, you know, more than 40 to 50% of the cars are built in South Africa, and it's all the top end. And I think a lot of people in South Africa don't realize that it, you know, let's say the T1 category is the Formula One of off-road, and all these the major manufacturers are in South Africa. We building this absolutely quality, and when you look at the cars and the finishes, it's another level. It really, really is, you know.
It's quite a privilege being here. All the very best, A, for Dakar, B, for the development and the testing on this car, and for next year. I hope it's a very successful and fast and happy year for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's you know, we spent a lot of time, as I said, is being very, very strategic of when we would drive and how we would drive. We do realize that the T1 Plus and the regulations with FIA is now, let's say, stable for at least the next, I would say, 5 years. Obviously, let's say a power plant might change in, you know, is it biofuels into the future? I can't see electric. I mean, I know all the green people and all the marketing and all the bullshit that happens, but not in our space, not the remote places where we race. So, you know, maybe biofuels into the future is where we would go, but the stability of the rules are now in place that we can all put our heads down, we can build world-class products, which we already do, but now we can refine them and not be derailed by new regulations every second here. And that's what's really been difficult for a lot of us as businesses, you know. Just as you arrive to the party, they turn the lights off and call last round, you know, and you say, guys, come on now, man. But as I said, stability looks there now, and I think for all of us as South African, and I'm talking on behalf of all the manufacturers, I think we're all excited, and there's good opportunities if the supply chains can support us.
Well, good luck. Thanks a lot for coming in and spending time with us and for allowing us to have a good look at this car. It's a true privilege.
It's an absolute pleasure, and thanks once again for you guys for always giving us the platform to be able to communicate and market ourselves. And you know, we watch the channel all the time, getting all the different insights. And as I said before, the more you know, the better it gets. So we're very grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Terence. Cheers.